My daughter gave my lakefront villa to her husband's parents. She didn't ask. She just told me. It's theirs now, she said over the phone, like she was canceling a brunch reservation. You're not allowed to go back there. I smiled and nodded like I always did. But when they showed up to move in, I had something waiting for them. A surprise they'd never forget. Before we get started, hit that subscribe button, give this story a like, and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. What happens next will change everything. Because betrayal's one thing. But stealing from someone who built everything with his own hands? That's something else. It started the way these things always do. Quietly. I pulled into the driveway of the villa late Friday afternoon, just as the lake turned gold under the sun. I'd driven up from San Diego, 2 hours of traffic, podcasts, and memories I couldn't quite shake. My weekend bag sat in the passenger seat. I was picturing coffee on the deck, maybe some reading by the fireplace. Instead, I saw 2 figures standing on the terrace. Bathrobes, mugs in hand. Kelly leaned against the railing, her dark hair pulled back. The man next to her, Palmer, my son-in-law, stiffened the moment he noticed me. I stared at them. My throat dried. This was my house? Mine and Elizabeth's. I'd built it after we finished the big commercial contracts off 12th and Harmon. We picked every tile, every cabinet pull, every paint color. This wasn't some Airbnb she could book with a smug text. What the hell? I said quietly. My hand dropped to the bag at my feet. Kelly straightened. Her voice floated down before I even reached the front steps. Dad, you can't stay here. I blinked. Bye. What? Palmer and I are having a romantic weekend. I laughed, though nothing about it felt funny. Kelly, this is my villa. She sipped her coffee. Not right now, it isn't. Palmer stood behind her, mute and awkward, like a man halfway through a crime he didn't fully understand. Look, I said, trying to stay calm. I drove 2 hours to get here. I just want to spend the weekend. We were here first, she said, and we're not leaving. Her robe slipped slightly at the collar. She tugged it closed like she was protecting something that wasn't hers. I took one slow step toward the front door. Don't, she snapped. Just get back in your car and go. I stood there on my own porch, watching my only child tell me I didn't belong. Palmer looked down at his slippers. Kelly's voice came again, louder. You're just in the way. There it was. The line she wouldn't be able to take back. The one I'd never forget. In the way. On my own property. In the place where Elizabeth and I had planned to grow old. I bent down, picked up my bag. My knees ached as I stood. Fine, I said. I'll go. She didn't say thank you. She didn't say goodbye. Just turned her back and went inside. By the time I reached my car, they were already talking about dinner plans like I'd never been there at all. I started the engine. German, reliable, unlike family, apparently. I didn't look back as I pulled out of the driveway, but in the mirror I saw Kelly raise her mug in a little toast. Maybe to Palmer. Maybe to herself. Or maybe to the part of me she thought had finally given up. She was wrong about that. Monday night, I sat in my study, the villa brochure still open on the desk. The same one Elizabeth and I had framed back in '08 when we finally closed on the place. It had always been more than a second home. It was our goodbye plan, our soft landing, the way we were supposed to fade gently from the world together, surrounded by trees and water and peace. Now Kelly was handing it off like a gift basket. The phone rang at 8:12. I stared at the screen for a full 5 seconds before answering. I'd hoped it was an apology. Instead, it was logistics. Palmer's parents are moving in Sunday, she said flatly. They've already booked the movers. Excuse me? They need housing. You hardly use the villa. It's a waste. My mouth went dry. Kelly, that's not yours to give away. You're being selfish, she snapped. They're family now, real family. You barely count. There was a pause, a long one. Then her voice dropped lower. You're old, alone. What do you need a lake house for? She'd meant it to sting, and it did, but something shifted inside me. Not pain, not even anger, just clarity. Cold, bright, undeniable. I said no, I told her. Kelly laughed, not kindly. You can't say no to me, but I just did. You know what? She said. Forget it. You'll regret this. Then the line went dead. I sat in silence for almost an hour, listening to the faint hum of traffic outside, the refrigerator cycling in the kitchen, the distant echo of Elizabeth's voice in my head. Give her time, Fred. She always said that. I had. 3 years. Too much time. Tuesday morning, I called Marcus Chen, my longtime attorney. The man who helped me win zoning disputes in 2 counties. If anyone knew how to lock a property down, it was Marcus. Family trying to take something? He asked, not unkindly. Something like that. We met that afternoon. His office still smelled like leather and old wood, the way real law offices do. He took one look at the deed and nodded. Good news is you've still got complete legal control. Bad news, they're already planning a takeover. I need to stop it. Then we start now. We outlined a plan. Title verification, irrevocable trust, advanced security provisions. He gave me a folder of paperwork. I promised to return it signed before Thursday. That night, Kelly sent a text. Don't be dramatic. It's just a house. Just a house. I stared at the message, then at the picture on my desk, Elizabeth in front of the fireplace holding a glass of red wine, smiling at something I'd said. It wasn't just a house. It was where I remembered how to breathe after I lost her. I turned off my phone. By Wednesday morning, I'd signed every document and scanned it back to Marcus. Time to stop playing defense, I said. And I meant it. Derek Collins lived 3 doors down from me. Semi-retired software guy, a cat named Pasquale, and enough smart home gear to make a Google engineer nervous. We'd worked together on his floodproofing last winter, and he still owed me a favor. He opened the door in socks and a hoodie that read, 404, hairline not found. Fred, he asked, everything okay? Not really. You busy? He stepped aside. Now I'm not. Inside, his place looked like a circuit board exploded. 3 glowing monitors, a shelf of network routers, tools, cables, microcontrollers stacked in plastic drawers. I want to rig my house, I said. The villa. He looked up. Rig? How? Lights, motion sensors, audio, maybe projections. He set down his mug. To scare someone? More like convince them the house doesn't want them. His eyes lit up. Like a smart home poltergeist? Something like that. I handed him a folded paper. Kelly's message. Sunday, movers, Palmer's parents. Derek scanned it, then nodded. Say no more. We started planning right then at his whiteboard. Entry zones, trigger points, timed responses, hidden speakers, a master control tablet for me. The goal wasn't to damage, just to disturb. Make it clear they weren't welcome. We'll need 2 days, he said. You drive? 6 a.m., Thursday. By the time we reached the villa, fog had settled over the lake like a warning. The air smelled like pine needles and the old memories. I stood on the porch, hand resting on the door handle. You sure about this? Derek asked. They think it's theirs, I said. Let's show them the house disagrees. We unpacked quickly. Motion sensors in the entryway, LED light strips concealed under furniture, hidden speakers behind vents and inside lamps, projectors installed high on bookshelves, angled to cast long, shifting shadows. Derek was in his element. Flickering lights here, he muttered. Low rumble audio, water triggers, random timing, creeps people out more. By dusk, we had it mapped. Each room had its own sequence. The more they moved, the more the system escalated. Whispered voices, footsteps, flickering lights, random faucets turning on. The whole villa wired into something alive. At 9:13 p.m., we ran the first full simulation. I opened the front door. Lights stuttered. Shadows slid across the ceiling. A low voice from nowhere said, "You shouldn't be here." Water gushed in the master bath. The hallway creaked like footsteps overhead. Derek turned to me, grinning. "This is art." I watched the lights pulse once, then fade. "No," I said. "This is justice." Friday morning, I sat in my truck across the road from the villa. Fog hugged the lake like a veil, the kind Elizabeth used to wear to church when she didn't want to be noticed. That fog made the whole place look like a dream, the kind that turns sharp when you reach out to touch it. The smart system was armed, tablet in the glove box, everything synced, tested, and waiting. What was I waiting for? Maybe for some feeling to rise up and stop me. Regret, pity, love maybe, but nothing came. At 9:42 a.m., my phone buzzed. "Palmer's parents are coming early tomorrow. Hope you're not planning to interfere." "Kelly." I stared at the message. "No, please." "No, we need to talk." Just a warning, I didn't respond. They thought I'd driven up last week just to get angry and leave again. That I'd go home to my sad little house and surrender like I always did. That I'd watch them take the place Elizabeth and I built and make it theirs, as if I were dead already. But they didn't know who they were dealing with anymore. I left Tahoe at noon, drove the 2 hours back to San Diego in silence. Didn't play the radio, didn't think about much. Just counted white dashes on the highway and let the miles roll under me. When I got home, I opened a beer and stood in the middle of the kitchen, listening to the floorboard Elizabeth always tripped over. It still creaked. Saturday morning came heavy with clouds. I woke early, couldn't sleep, made strong coffee and watched the street go quiet. No calls, no texts, no last-minute change of heart from Kelly. At 1:07 p.m., the villa's driveway camera activated. A champagne-colored Lexus crawled up the gravel. Palmer driving, Kelly in the passenger seat, Margaret and Carl in the back, dressed like they were arriving at a Napa retreat instead of someone else's home. They got out slowly, stretching, pointing at things like tourists. Kelly gestured toward the lake. Margaret adjusted her scarf, already assessing how she'd rearrange the patio furniture. Carl was carrying a small cooler. Palmer had the keys. They paused at the front door just long enough for Kelly to say something that made the others laugh. Then Palmer inserted the key I'd given her 3 years ago. The one she'd quietly copied, I'm sure. They stepped inside at 1:53 p.m. I let them get comfortable. Let them wander the entryway, set down their bags, comment on the scent of cedar, the view from the windows. I pictured Margaret making a remark about how the walls needed freshening up. Carl finding the liquor cabinet. Palmer stretching on my leather chair. At 2:06 p.m., I tapped the activation button. The entry light dimmed, then stuttered. The front door sealed with a soft mechanical thud. Speakers embedded in the walls activated. A low hum, barely audible at first, grew louder. "You don't belong here," the voice said. Soft, genderless, flat. Margaret froze mid-step. Palmer looked around confused. Carl muttered something. The camera caught his mouth. What the hell was that? Then the hallway lights began to flicker, one after another, strobing in irregular patterns. A shadow moved along the far wall. Nothing solid, just enough to make the human brain start inventing things. Kelly called out, "Dad?" I didn't answer. The lights flickered faster. A sink turned on somewhere. Then another. The whole plumbing system came alive like a creature waking up angry. "This is not your home," the voice repeated, louder this time. Palmer moved toward the breaker box. He never made it. Derek had rerouted the system power through an independent backup in the basement. No way to kill it without the tablet. Carl backed into the living room, eyes darting. Margaret clutched her purse like it was a life raft. Kelly tried to call me. I let it ring. Then came the footsteps. Speaker emitted, perfectly placed, surrounding them. Floorboards creaking above, behind, around. No matter where they moved, it sounded like someone else was already in the room. Margaret screamed. I watched through the camera feed, face lit by the screen's cold light. They didn't leave. Not yet. They argued, shouted. Kelly paced in circles. Palmer tried the thermostat, then the security panel, then the back door. Nothing worked. You are trespassing. You are not welcome. You are not safe. More shadows danced. Water gushed. Lights went black, then blinding. Derek had timed everything like a conductor. Even I flinched watching it unfold. By 2:48, the front door unlocked. They ran. All four of them, out into the driveway, bags forgotten, Margaret in tears, Carl shouting that they'd been hacked. Palmer looking back over his shoulder like he expected the house to follow them. Kelly didn't look back at all. The official paperwork arrived Saturday morning by courier. Cream envelope, gold embossed letterhead, Second Wind Foundation for Housing Justice. Marcus had moved fast. He always did when the situation called for quiet precision. The trust was done. Irrevocable. I retained full usage of the villa for life. After that, it would become transitional housing for veterans. Elizabeth would have approved. She used to volunteer at the VA clinic near Pacific Heights, said we owed more than we gave. It was over, neat, final. Kelly didn't know yet. The camera feed from the villa showed what it always showed this time of year. Pale light through pine branches, wind stirring the patio umbrella, lake water glinting like polished glass. That view still made something move in my chest. Not grief exactly. Just the kind of ache you don't want to get rid of because it reminds you that love was once real. At 2:13 p.m., my doorbell rang. I didn't check the peephole. I didn't need to. Kelly stood on my porch in dark jeans, black coat, and the expression of someone who'd practiced their lines all morning. Palmer was behind her, hands in his pockets, face unreadable. "Can we come in?" she asked. I opened the door but didn't answer, just turned and let them follow. They sat on the edge of the living room couch like school kids waiting to be disciplined. I stayed standing. Let them speak first. "We're not pressing charges," Kelly said. Flat, like it was a concession. I raised an eyebrow. "Were you ever?" Palmer looked down at the rug. Kelly folded her hands. "We didn't realize the villa still mattered to you. We thought you were done with it." "Because I stopped handing it over?" I asked. She winced. "We didn't mean it that way." "But that's exactly what you meant." Silence. Palmer cleared his throat. "We came to ask if you'd consider undoing the trust, rewriting it, so the villa could stay in the family." "Your side of the family, you mean?" Kelly tried to smile. "You raised me. We're still your family." I nodded slowly. "I raised you. I did my job. But what you've done since, that's on you." "You're punishing us." "No," I said. I'm protecting myself." She stood. "Dad, what would it take?" "To reverse what you've done, more than you have." She looked stunned. "I forgave you," I added. "But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting." Palmer finally stood too. "So that's it? No second chance?" I walked to the door, opened it wide. "That was the second chance." They left. They didn't call again that night. No texts, no voicemails, no emails. For once they were quiet. I sat in my study with the lights low, the tablet turned off, and a glass of rye in my hand. Elizabeth's favorite bottle, the one she only opened for New Year's or news worth celebrating. I figured this counted. Outside, San Diego exhaled into evening. A dog barked across the street. Someone's screen door slammed. Somewhere, a sprinkler ticked to life. The ordinary sounds of people living lives untouched by inheritance drama or the fallout of betrayal. It felt like peace. Not joy, not victory, just peace. And that was enough. Until Sunday afternoon. The email came in at 2:06 p.m. Subject line, Notice of Dispute, Property Rights and Legacy Access. I read it 3 times. The sender was some junior attorney at a boutique firm in La Jolla. No real teeth, but polished just enough to sound threatening. The message was dressed up in soft language. Concerns about undue influence, emotional stress, implied legacy assumptions. That last phrase made me laugh. Implied. As if legacy was something you were owed by bloodline alone. As if entitlement counted more than effort. Elizabeth would have ripped it in half. I forwarded the email to Marcus with a simple note. Handle this. And go loud. By Tuesday, Marcus had filed a public response. Not a counterclaim, not a lawsuit, a press release, 1 page, plain language. San Diego builder donates lakefront property to Veteran Housing Trust. Lifetime usage retained. Irrevocable transfer. Allegations of coercion unfounded and without merit. It was up on local news by that evening. Channel 9 ran a full segment. They used an old photo of me from a 2009 community build. Hard hat, clipboard, my arm around a marine holding blueprints. The anchorwoman said I'd stepped back into public service with a legacy gift. I didn't smile watching it, but I didn't turn it off either. The next morning, the bakery on Fillmore had fresh sourdough. Elizabeth always said their crust had the best crackle in the city. I bought 2 loaves, still warm. The clerk smiled, asked if I was celebrating something. Not exactly, I said. But I guess you could call it that. When I got home, 3 missed calls from Kelly, 1 voicemail. I didn't listen to it. I put the bread on the cutting board, made coffee, sat outside in the morning sun. Some things you protect with a lawyer. Others, you protect by never picking up the phone again. The voicemail came Wednesday afternoon, long after I'd stopped expecting anything useful. I was on the porch, polishing the handrail with steel wool, when the phone buzzed in my shirt pocket. Kelly's name. I let it go to voicemail. I didn't rush to check it. Didn't even think about it again until after dinner when the house had gone still. She sounded tired. Dad, I don't even know what to say anymore. You've made your point, loud and clear. Pause. I didn't realize how far gone we were. How far I let things go. And I guess I thought you'd always be there. That maybe I didn't have to think about fairness because you were Dad, and you just take it. I didn't know how much that cost you. Another pause, longer. I'm not asking for the villa back. I'm not asking for anything, really. But if there's a way forward, I'm listening. Then silence. She didn't say goodbye. Just let the call end like a sentence she was too tired to finish. I played it twice. Not because I didn't believe what she said, but because I didn't know if it was real or just a performance shaped by consequences. Palmer's fingerprints were all over the arrogance. But this sounded like the girl I raised, and that made it harder. I'd waited 3 years to hear a note of real remorse in her voice. And now that I had, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like someone finally asking where the fire extinguisher was after the house had burned down. That night, I pulled out Elizabeth's journal. The navy one she kept locked in the drawer by her side of the bed. I'd only read it once after she passed. Out of grief, not curiosity. But now I was looking for something specific. Halfway through, I found it, scribbled in pencil. People aren't good or bad. They're just scared or safe. Scared people take, safe people give. And sometimes the only gift left is truth. I closed the journal and sat there in the quiet. Kelly had grown up safe, loved, held. She had everything she needed, but when Elizabeth died, she lost her compass. And I became desperate to hold on to what was left. So I opened the door too wide, let her step over boundaries I should have protected. And now, here we were. I called Marcus the next morning. "No changes to the trust," I said, "but draft a letter, one that's clear. No loopholes, no sugar." "You want it firm?" "I want it honest. Tell her the villa's not hers and never will be. But tell her she's still my daughter, that the door's open, just not for claims, only for conversation." He was quiet for a moment, then, "That's a hard line." "Maybe, or maybe it's just the first honest one I've drawn." Later that afternoon, I stood on the deck at the villa, coffee in hand. The lake didn't look forgiving, but it looked steady, unchanging. And that I could work with. Marcus delivered the letter on Friday, not by email. Printed, signed, hand-delivered to Kelly's address with a receipt confirmation and timestamp. Old school formality, the kind that says, "This matters." No screen. No way to forward or delete it with a swipe. I'd reviewed every word the night before, pacing the length of my study with a red pen, crossing out anything that felt indulgent or vague. What remained was simple. The villa was permanently and legally transferred. No claims would be considered now or in the future. I retained full lifetime usage. The charitable trust was already registered and protected, but below the legal terms, Marcus added a final paragraph at my request. One sentence, just one. And it wasn't written for lawyers. "You are not entitled to what was built before you, but you are still invited into what comes next, if you show up differently." That was the line. No compromise. I didn't hear back. Not that day, not Saturday, not Sunday. But this time, the silence didn't hollow me out. It wasn't loaded with hope or dread. It just was. Like weather passing through. I didn't check my phone every 10 minutes. I didn't pace. Instead, I packed a weekend bag and drove back up to the villa. No traps to set. No system to monitor. No message to deliver. Just me, the lake, and the paperback novel I'd been pretending to finish for 3 years. I got in late, cooked a quick dinner, ate on the couch, legs up, no plates, just a pot and a fork. Like I used to do when Elizabeth was visiting her sister in Temecula. She always hated that. Said it wasn't about dishes. Said it was about honoring the meal. I left the windows open that night. The wind came in soft. The ceiling creaked like an old friend stretching. I slept without dreams. The next morning, I made coffee and opened every curtain in the house. Sunlight painted the floorboards. The lake outside glinted like it was proud of something. I sat for an hour doing nothing. Not thinking, not planning, just sitting. By noon, I started cleaning. Not for show, not because I had to, but because it felt good. I scrubbed the tub, polished the faucets, tightened a hinge on the front hall closet that had squeaked since 2014. The kind of work that doesn't impress anyone but brings a strange kind of dignity. Tuesday afternoon, I got a confirmation email from the foundation. The villa was now fully registered under their donor program. On the public record, I would be listed once, under a term I hadn't chosen but immediately liked. Lifetime steward. Not owner, not victim, just someone who took care of what mattered until it was time to let go. Thursday evening, the doorbell rang just after sunset. No warning, no call ahead. Just the quiet ding of the bell and the silhouette of someone standing on the porch. When I opened the door, it was Kelly. No Palmer, no luggage. Just her in a gray coat, holding a folded envelope in both hands like it was made of glass. She looked different. Not younger, not older, just real. Like someone who'd been pretending for so long she forgot what her face looked like at rest. "Can I come in?" she asked. I didn't say yes, I just stepped back. She entered the house slowly, eyes scanning the walls like she expected something to have changed. Maybe she hadn't been there in a while. Not really. She paused at the mantel where Elizabeth's photo still sat in its carved wooden frame. That was Mom's favorite picture, she said softly. I know. She stayed there longer than I expected, then turned and sat down on the couch, careful like someone who wasn't sure if they were allowed. I didn't offer tea. I didn't ask questions. I sat across from her in Elizabeth's old chair, the one with the worn armrest and the threadbare cushion. I got your letter, Kelly said. I read it 3 times. I nodded. All right. She held out the envelope. I didn't take it right away. I wrote something, she added. I didn't want to email it. Didn't want to send another message you'd have to delete. I just wanted to leave something that wouldn't disappear. I took the envelope but didn't open it. Just held it in my lap. I'm not here to take anything, she said quickly. I know the villa's gone, and I know I gave it away before you did. I know all of it. I just wanted to say... She stopped, breathed. I'm sorry, Dad. I really, truly am. She looked at the floor like she was waiting for something to fall on her head. I was angry, she said. When Mom died, I blamed you. I blamed life. I wanted someone to pay for what I lost, and I didn't know where else to send that anger. So I sent it at you. And when you didn't fight back, I thought that meant you could take it. I did take it, I said. For a long time. I know. We sat in silence for a minute. Maybe more. Then she asked, what happens now? I didn't answer right away. I looked at her, really looked. And for the first time in years, I didn't see entitlement or contempt. I saw my kid. That depends, I said. Do you want to be my daughter again, or someone who only shows up when there's something to gain? She nodded slowly. I want to come home. I didn't say anything, but I didn't say no either. And for now, that was enough. Thursday evening, the doorbell rang just after sunset. No warning, no text. Just the quiet chime, then stillness. I half expected it to be a neighbor. Maybe Derek stopping by with another tech gadget or to return a book he borrowed last summer. But when I opened the door, it was Kelly. She stood there alone. No Palmer, no suitcase. Just her in a gray coat with a folded envelope in both hands like it might shatter if she moved too fast. Can I come in? She asked. I didn't say yes. I just stepped aside and let her walk past me. She moved through the entryway like someone visiting a museum of a former life. Paused near the framed photograph of Elizabeth laughing on the deck in her last spring. Then the mantle. Our last Christmas together. Kelly reached out but didn't touch the glass. I got your letter, she said finally. I read it 3 times. I nodded. All right. She sat on the couch slowly, carefully, like the cushions might reject her. I stayed standing for a beat longer before settling into Elizabeth's old chair across from her. I wrote something too, she said. Not an argument, not a counteroffer. Just words. She held out the envelope. I took it but didn't open it, let it rest in my lap. I know I messed up, she said. I know I used your love like a resource. I'd leaned on it too hard and too often. I stopped seeing you as a person. I didn't respond, not yet. She glanced toward the window, where the last of the sun was sliding behind the rooftops. When Mom died, she said, I got so angry. I didn't know where to put it. I didn't know how to carry grief. I thought if I just kept moving, if I filled the space with stuff, weddings and apartments and holidays and bills, I wouldn't have to feel it. You filled it with distance, I said. And bills you expected someone else to pay. I know. She took a breath. I'm not asking to change the trust. I'm not here to argue about the villa. I know that part's over, but I'd like to be something else again, if you'll let me. I looked at her. Really looked. Not as the woman who tried to give away my house, but as the girl who used to write me notes in crayon, The one who cried the first time she scraped her knee. Not because it hurt, but because she thought blood meant she was broken. "What happens now?" she asked. I said nothing at first. Then, "That depends on what kind of daughter you want to be, and what kind of man I need to be to stop letting guilt define everything." She nodded. "I want to come home." And I believed her, for the first time in a very long time. Kelly stayed for dinner that night. Nothing fancy, just leftover roast chicken, sautéed greens, and some potatoes I crisped up in the cast iron. She offered to help, but I waved her off. I needed the rhythm of the kitchen to settle my nerves. The clatter of utensils, the hiss of oil, the sound of something ordinary being done well. We ate at the small table off the kitchen. Not a word for the first 10 minutes, and for once the silence didn't bother me. It wasn't strained, it wasn't forced, just full. Like a room that had been too loud for too long and finally remembered how to breathe. She asked for salt halfway through the meal and she said thank you. Not just out of habit. The way she said it, it landed. After we finished, she stood and cleared the dishes without being asked. Just picked them up, walked them to the sink, and started rinsing. I dried. That was the whole exchange. It felt more honest than any of the speeches we'd thrown at each other in years. We moved to the porch after. I poured 2 mugs of tea, black with a splash of milk, how Elizabeth used to make it for her. Kelly curled into the patio chair, legs tucked up like she used to when she was 17, and sulking over some forgotten heartbreak. The porch light clicked on above us, the kind with the flicker that's never been quite right. "I kept trying to pretend everything was fine," she said after a while, staring at the dark street. "Even when I was doing things I knew would make you hate me. I told myself you were strong enough to take it." "That wasn't strength," I said. "That was fear. I was afraid if I pushed back I'd lose the last piece of your mother I had left." She swallowed. "I used that." I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "Yes." She didn't deny it. She just nodded, eyes shiny but dry. "I think," she began, "I thought the villa was safety. Like if I could keep that place close, I'd still have a piece of her, and you. Even if it meant pushing you out." "That's not connection," I said. "That's occupation." It caught her off guard. She laughed, a short burst, and then so did I. Not because it was funny, because it was true. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of cream paper. "I've been carrying this with me," she said. "Marcus's letter, your words. I read it every morning before I opened my laptop. It's the only thing you've given me in years that didn't ask me to be someone else." "It didn't ask you to do anything," I said. "That's the difference." She looked down at the envelope in her lap. "I didn't realize how much I missed you," she said. "You missed who you thought I was," I said. "The dad who'd fix things with a check, who'd swallow hard and say, 'I understand' every time you walked all over me." She didn't deny it. That silence, her silence, meant more than words would have. "I don't want you miserable," she said. "I'm not," I replied. "Not anymore." We sat like that until the streetlights came on. The kind of evening that doesn't declare itself meaningful but stays with you later in small moments. Over coffee, in line at the post office, while folding laundry. When she stood to leave, she hugged me. Not a performance, not a test. Just a daughter holding her father like someone she didn't want to lose again. The next few weeks passed without drama. No lawyers, no threats, no explosive voicemails, just stillness. Like the entire house, and maybe our whole family, had finally exhaled after holding its breath for years. Kelly started calling every few days. Nothing long, nothing heavy. Recipes, traffic, questions about the old furnace. Idle talk, but not fake. The kind of conversation that used to happen on a drive to the grocery store, or over a sink full of dishes. The kind of talk that doesn't solve anything but keeps the line open. I didn't rush it. I didn't press. She never mentioned Palmer. I never asked. Once she called just to ask if I remembered the name of the diner in Reno where we'd stopped during a camping trip in '99. I did. Rusty's. She laughed when I said it. I thought I made that name up, she said. It sounded made up. Another time, she texted me a picture of an old music box Elizabeth had given her for her 8th birthday. Blue enamel with chipped corners and a ballerina that spun slower than it used to. Still works, she wrote. Still smells like her. I didn't reply, just sat in my study with the message open, letting the memory rise up and fall away again. No need to add to it. Then, one Thursday, she showed up unannounced. She was holding a white paper bag with the logo from Peterson's Bakery, the only place in town that still made orange-glazed donuts the way I liked. They only had 2 left, she said. I bought both. No makeup, hair tied back, worn hoodie that might have been mine 10 years ago. We sat in the kitchen, shared the first one with black coffee. No sugar, no expectations. She stayed about 40 minutes. Told me a story about a coworker who brought their pet snake to a Zoom meeting, then asked if I still had the snow globe she gave me when she was 6. I did. It was still on the bookshelf in the study, tucked between 2 books on home repair and Elizabeth's old gardening almanac. Before she left, she hugged me. Tight, both arms cheek pressed to my shoulder. I stood on the porch and watched her drive away. No part of me wondered if it was temporary. I didn't check my phone after. I didn't need confirmation. That weekend, I went back up to the villa. Not to retreat, not to prepare for war, just to be there. I missed the wind between those particular trees, the way the pine needles sounded different than the ones down south. I missed the stillness of that lake in the early morning, how it held the light like a secret. I missed Elizabeth's chair and the quiet it knew how to offer. I brought my toolbox, too. Not because anything was broken, just because I wanted to work. Over the next 2 days, I resealed the windows, cleared the gutters, fixed a loose board on the dock. I replaced the mesh screen on the porch door, the one Palmer tore through and never offered to repair. I sanded the deck rail, re-oiled it, tested every latch on every cabinet. Elizabeth would have smiled at that. She used to say, the way I fixed things was just another way of saying I still cared. Sunday morning, I brewed coffee and sat in her chair. The sun climbed the ridgeline slowly like it didn't want to intrude. Ducks traced lazy paths across the water. A breeze rolled down from the hills and lifted the corner of the hallway curtain like someone passing through. And that's when I realized something had shifted. Not in the house, not in Kelly. In me. I came back to San Diego Monday afternoon. Took the long route. Windows cracked, jacket in the passenger seat, thermos of black coffee nestled between my knees. No traffic, no rush. The kind of return trip that didn't feel like leaving anything behind. Just changing scenery. At home, the mailbox held a single letter. No stamp. Hand-delivered. Kelly's handwriting on the front. Smaller than usual, neater. The way she used to write when she was afraid of saying too much. I stood in the kitchen a long time before opening it. It started simply, I'm not asking for anything. I just want to tell you what I remember. She wrote 3 pages. Unlined paper, black ink, not a typed draft with polished apologies. Just memories, unvarnished. Things I hadn't thought about in years. She wrote about the tomatoes in the side garden, how she and Elizabeth used to name them. She remembered the exact smell of sunscreen mixed with earth. She mentioned our trip to the science center in 4th grade, the one where I chaperoned and accidentally packed enough snacks for the entire class. She said I looked embarrassed until she said it was the best lunch she'd ever had. Then came this line, I used to fake being asleep in the car so you'd carry me inside. I remember that more than anything, feeling safe. I stopped there. Not because I couldn't keep reading, but because I wanted that sentence to stretch a little longer than it did. She ended the letter with, I know I broke something, but if I can't fix it, maybe I can still stand beside it. That line hit deeper than any apology she could have written. I sat at the kitchen table and read the whole thing again. Slower. No underlining, no analysis. Just a man holding the words of his daughter and hearing her voice without interruption. It wasn't an ask. There were no traps in it. Just the kind of honesty that arrives when someone finally realizes forgiveness isn't something you can steal or demand, only hope for. That night, I didn't write back. I didn't call. I didn't do anything. I slept well. The next morning, I slid the letter between 2 pages of Elizabeth's journal. The same place I'd once tucked away the hospital bill from her final chemo cycle. She never saw it. I never meant for her to, but it felt like the right place for things carried out of love, not performance. 2 days later, Kelly called. I answered on the second ring. "Hey," she said. I smiled. "Hey." There was a long pause. Not uncomfortable, just full. "Do you remember that hiking trail Mom loved?" she asked. "The one behind the stone church off Highway 4? "I do." "I drove past it today," she said. "It still looks the same, the ferns, the wooden footbridge, everything. It always did." Then, after a breath, "Would you want to go sometime? Not today, just sometime." It wasn't a peace treaty. It wasn't a do-over, but it was something. A step onto a trail we used to know, taken slowly without pretending the last miles hadn't been hard. We didn't hike that week, but the invitation sat between us like a folded map. Untouched, but there. Something that didn't need to be opened yet, just acknowledged. A promise waiting for the right shoes, the right weather, the right silence. In the meantime, we talked. Once or twice a week. Sometimes more. Nothing dramatic, nothing urgent, just conversations that existed for their own sake. A question about replacing a bathroom tile? A recipe for black bean soup? A text that just said, "Do you remember when we tried to build that birdhouse and nailed it shut with the hammer inside?" I remembered. I told her I still had the hammer. She didn't believe me. I sent a picture. She sent back 4 laughing emojis and then softer. "Thanks for keeping it." She sent another photo a few days later, Elizabeth's rose bush, in bloom. "I thought it died after that frost," she wrote. "Guess not," I replied. "Sometimes the roots are stronger than they look." She didn't write anything back. Just sent a single heart. It was the first one I'd seen from her in years. That Saturday, I drove out to the nursery on Canyon Road. Picked up 2 more rose bushes. Not the same variety. These were a deeper red, almost purple in the right light. I planted them along the back fence where Elizabeth used to sit with a paperback. And her iced tea, legs curled under her like a kid. I hadn't gardened in a long time. Forgot how good the dirt smelled when you turned it with your hands. It didn't feel like labor. It felt like prayer. Kelly stopped by the next Thursday afternoon. She brought a quart of lentil soup and a seeded loaf from a downtown bakery. "You used to say you hated this place," she said. "Too fancy." I shrugged. "Turns out it's just food." She grinned. We ate in the kitchen. No rush. She sat in her old seat without hesitation this time. I could feel her watching me, still scanning for distance, waiting for me to flinch. I didn't, and after a while, she stopped watching. "You seem different," she said. "I am." "Better?" I thought for a moment. Not better, just finished pretending. She nodded like she understood exactly what I meant. After dinner, she lingered in the living room. I pulled the old photo albums off the bottom shelf. She reached for the one with the fraying spine and we flipped through the pages slowly. She laughed at the haircut I had in '92. I reminded her of the time she glued macaroni to the dining table for art. The stain never came out. Elizabeth covered it with a bowl of lemons for 15 years. We didn't talk about Palmer. We didn't need to. I think she knew that chapter had closed. If it hadn't, it was close. On Sunday, I drove us out to the trail behind the old stone church. Elizabeth used to love it out there, early in the morning, before the fog lifted. She always said the path smelled like cedar and memories. I parked in the gravel lot and turned off the engine. Kelly sat there a minute. Didn't rush. Her fingers rested lightly on the edge of her seat, like she was bracing herself for a climb that had nothing to do with elevation. "Do you think she'd be proud of either of us?" she asked. I looked straight ahead. The trees moved gently in the wind. "I think she'd be relieved," I said, "that we're finally talking." We started walking. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was movement. The trail looked the same wooden sign, weather-worn and splintered near the bottom. The gravel path underfoot, damp with spring. The smell of cedar and something older. Wet bark, decaying leaves, pine needles softened by time. The kind of scent that doesn't hit you right away but lingers, stays on your clothes long after you leave. We didn't talk much at first, just walked. Kelly had brought a thermos of tea. I brought the 2 small travel mugs Elizabeth used to pack for morning drives, the ceramic ones with faded flowers and chipped rims. They clinked gently in my coat pocket like little reminders of routine, of days built from quiet habits. About a mile in, the path opened up to the overlook. Still my favorite part. Flat rock ledge. Valley stretched below like an unfinished painting. The wind stronger up there, but not cold. Just enough to make the trees whisper. We used to stop there every time. Elizabeth called it the listening place. Said it was one of the only places where her thoughts felt quieter than the world around her. Kelly and I sat on the old fallen log, the same one she used to climb when she was 8, pretending it was a pirate ship. I poured the tea and handed her a mug. She held it in both hands. Didn't sip. Just held it like it might float away if she let go. "Remember the time Mom dropped her whole lunch down the hill?" she asked suddenly. I laughed. The sandwich somersaulted like it had somewhere important to be. She just shrugged and ate half of mine. And never let herself live it down. Kelly smiled. Not the tight kind. Not the one you use to signal everything's fine when it's not. It was real. The kind that starts in the cheeks and pulls the eyes along with it. A breeze moved through the trees behind us. Leaves skittered across the dirt, caught in a lazy spiral before settling. "I wish we'd done this sooner," she said. "I wish we'd needed it less," I replied. She nodded. "Dad, I don't think I even knew how angry I was at you." "I think you did," I said. "I just don't think you knew why. I kept hoping you'd fall apart, that I'd see you cry. Break. Something. I needed to take care of you so I didn't have to sit with my own emptiness." "I wasn't strong," I told her. "I was frozen." Her eyes met mine. "Me too." We finished our tea in silence. The walk back felt shorter. Somewhere near the bend where the creek runs under the footbridge, she said, "Can I stay for dinner?" "Yes," I said. No hesitation, no calculation. Just yes. We made pasta, too much garlic. She grated the cheese like it owed her money, nearly took off a knuckle in the process. We laughed when it clumped. I burned the bread. We ate on the back porch under the string lights Elizabeth once called cheap-looking. Then kept up for 10 years after deciding they made the place feel more like summer. After we cleaned up, Kelly leaned against the railing and looked out into the dark. "I'm not sure what comes next," she said. "Neither am I told her. "Is that okay?" "It's honest." She nodded again, this time like it belonged to her whole face, her posture, her breath, the way she stayed still. When she left, she kissed my cheek. Not like a guest, not like someone trying to smooth something over. Like someone returning, not visiting. A week later, Kelly sent me a photo of her new apartment. Just one shot. Wooden floors, sunlight spilling across the room, a single green chair in the corner, and a bookshelf already half full. Not decorated, not staged. Just real. There was a tea mug on the windowsill and an open notebook on the floor beside a moving box. A life in motion. The text that came with it said, "Not much, but it's mine. And I'm starting over." She didn't mention Palmer. I didn't ask. There's a kind of respect that grows in the space where judgment used to live. I figured whatever she left behind, it was already weighing less than what she'd been carrying all this time. I texted back, "You'll make it into something, you always did." 3 dots lingered, then disappeared, then came back again. Finally, "Thanks, Dad." That Friday, I drove up to the villa. No reason, no schedule. Just felt the pull. The kind of morning where you don't need an excuse to go somewhere that still knows your name. The air had changed. Spring had fully arrived, and the lake was wide and clear, stretching into the horizon like a fresh page. The rose bushes I'd planted were starting to bud, small, tight fists of color still waiting to open. I stood beside them for a while, touching the soil, checking the stems. Growth you could measure in inches but feel in your chest. I brewed coffee, brought it out to the deck, and sat in Elizabeth's chair. I'd brought the crossword puzzle she never finished. Number 14 down was still blank. I didn't fill it in. Just traced the square with my finger and let the quiet wrap around me. Somewhere between the coffee and the breeze, I must have drifted off. I woke to the sound of tires crunching gravel. Not fast, not loud, just enough to let me know someone was coming home instead of arriving. I stood and walked to the front door, still brushing sleep from my eyes. It was Kelly. She got out of the car slowly, closed the door with both hands, and walked toward the house holding something under her arm. A wooden frame. From the distance, I couldn't see what was inside it. When she reached the porch, she held it out without saying anything. Her eyes were calm, not trying to read mine, not performing. "I found this in one of Mom's old boxes," she said. "I think you should have it." I took the frame in both hands. It was a photo I'd completely forgotten. Elizabeth standing at the edge of the lake, ankle deep in the water. Jeans rolled to her knees, her hair pinned up, laughing at something off camera, probably me. I remembered the day all at once, how cold the water had been, how she shrieked when she stepped in, then laughed and said, "If you don't wade in once in a while, you'll forget what it feels like to be awake." The photo must have been from an old disposable camera. The edges were soft, the colors muted, but her joy was sharp as ever. Kelly looked down at her shoes. "I think I needed to see her that way," she said. "Not sick, not tired, just alive." "She was," I said. She nodded. "She still is. I see her in the way I move now, the way I stand without bracing." We sat on the porch steps, neither of us reaching for the chairs. The wood was warm under us. The lake stretched silent in front of us, rippling slightly in the wind. "She looks so alive," Kelly whispered. "She was," I said again. "And you are too." When she left that evening, she didn't say goodbye. She just smiled. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel alone when the gravel settled behind someone's taillights. I felt accompanied. I didn't see Kelly for the next 2 weeks, but we kept in touch. She texted photos, blooming roses, the new tea kettle she found at a thrift shop, a dinner she was proud of. I only burned the bottom a little. Once she sent me a link to a song we used to play on road trips. Fleetwood Mac, Landslide. She didn't add any message. Didn't need to. The silence between us wasn't absence. It was breathing space. The kind you give something when you want it to keep growing. Then one Thursday morning she called. "Dad," she said, breathless, "you're not going to believe what I found." She'd been sorting through Elizabeth's cedar trunk, the old one we kept in the back of the guest room closet. Heavy brass latch, smelled like time. Elizabeth used to slip things in there all the time. Cards, photos, grocery lists with little hearts in the corners. I hadn't opened it since the funeral, couldn't bring myself to. "She left something for you," Kelly said. "I think it was meant for later, or maybe just someday." That afternoon she arrived with a padded envelope, worn at the edges, sealed with tape that had yellowed and curled slightly. My name was written on the front in Elizabeth's cursive. That was all. We sat at the kitchen table. I opened it with a paring knife. Inside, a stack of folded paper, soft with age. Across the top of the first sheet, in case Fred ever forgets. It wasn't a letter, not exactly, it was a list. 52 things Elizabeth loved about me. Some were small, almost silly. The way you eat apples down to the core. That you always carry an extra handkerchief even in summer. How you hum while fixing things off-key but happy. Others were weightier. That you always come home, no matter how late. How you listen even when it's hard. That you made a life with me, not just a house. I read slowly. Kelly didn't interrupt. Just sat across from me, eyes lowered, fingers resting on the table edge like she was holding something steady. I remember this pen, I murmured, tracing a line where the ink had bled slightly. She used to keep it in her purse, said it made her handwriting softer. Kelly reached out and touched one corner of the page. She really loved you, she said. I nodded, throat tight. She really saw you. That part landed harder, because somewhere between loss and repair, I'd started to forget who I was when someone loved me without conditions. We sat in silence, letting the list do its work. Number 37 was the one that broke me. You never tell me I'm too much. I closed my eyes. Let the sentence sink in. Let it touch whatever part of me still ached for her voice. When Kelly stood to leave, her eyes were red but steady. She saved the best parts of you, she said. No, I replied. She gave them to me. She didn't hug me this time, just held my hand for a long second before stepping onto the porch. And when the door closed, I didn't feel the usual ache. I felt witnessed. The next morning, I took the list back to the villa, folded it carefully as if it might wrinkle the past. I slipped it into the drawer of Elizabeth's old desk, beneath the gardening gloves she never let me toss, the pair with the frayed thumbs and one missing button. On top, I placed a small stone we'd found on the North Loop Trail during our second anniversary hike. She'd said it looked like a sleeping dog. I'd always thought it looked like a heart tipped on its side. That's where the list belonged. Not framed on a wall, not filed away, just close to her hands again. The lake that morning was still enough to see clouds mirrored in its surface. No boats, no wind, just glassy water holding the sky like breath. I brewed coffee, brought the mug to the deck, and watched a single bird trace loops above the tree line before vanishing. The house felt different now. No longer haunted by tension or memory. Not a shrine, not a monument, just a home again. My back still ached when I stood too long. My knees still protested stairs, but for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was defending the place. I was simply living in it. That afternoon, I swept out the shed, reorganized tools I hadn't touched in a decade, lined up every jar of screws, washers, and bolts like soldiers at inspection, found a half-built birdhouse Kelly had made in middle school. The roof was split, paint chipped off the sides. I almost tossed it. Then I didn't. I placed it on the workbench, planning to fix it. Not because it would ever hang again, but because it had once meant something. That evening, Kelly stopped by with a pie. Blueberry. Slightly burnt around the edges, the crust uneven. "Don't judge me," she said, holding it like a confession. I got distracted halfway through and forgot it was in the oven. "It's perfect," I said. We ate it on the porch, no plates, just napkins and 2 forks. The light was soft, the kind that makes shadows gentle. We didn't talk much, didn't need to. Eventually, she told me she was thinking about going back to school. Nothing intense, something flexible, maybe counseling, maybe social work. "I want to help people who get stuck," she said. "Like I was. People who don't know they're allowed to ask for help." "You weren't stuck," I told her. You were scared. Same thing, isn't it? No, I said. One can still move. She was quiet for a while after that, not disagreeing, just holding the idea. Before she left, she hesitated at the door. Would it be all right, she asked, if I brought a few people up here sometime? Not for a party, just people who need a break, quiet. Maybe a night by the lake. Someplace to remember they're still allowed to feel things. I didn't hesitate. Of course, I said. That's what the place is for now. The first time Kelly brought guests to the villa, I stayed in the background. 3 women. Late 30s, maybe early 40s. Each of them carried something in their posture that didn't belong to the present. Grief, maybe, or the fatigue of long pretending. They stepped out of Kelly's car slowly, like they weren't sure the ground would hold. One carried her overnight bag with both hands. Another clutched a sweatshirt to her chest like armor. The third had no bag at all. Nobody smiled at first. Kelly met them with quiet hugs, one by one. No introductions, no welcome speech. She didn't explain where they were or why it mattered. She just pointed toward the lake and said, "You don't have to do anything today. You just have to be." They stayed for 2 nights. I kept out of the way. Not because I wasn't welcome, but because some healing requires silence from the outside. I cleaned gutters, stacked firewood, took a long walk along the western trail where the pine roots stretched like veins across the path. It wasn't distance, it was reverence. During the day, I'd catch glimpses of them through the trees. Someone reading on the dock, someone sketching near the rose bushes, someone sitting barefoot in the grass with their face tilted toward the sun. They barely spoke above a murmur. That second evening, music drifted through the screen door. Soft, acoustic, someone strumming with no urgency. Then a voice, fragile but clear. I didn't recognize the song. I didn't need to. Laughter followed a few minutes later. Just a little. Tentative. The kind of laughter that sneaks out when no one's watching. When they left the Sunday morning, there was no rush. They moved slowly like people gathering something invisible. One of them took a photo of the lake from the porch steps. Another stood in the hallway just looking at the framed picture of Elizabeth near the entry table. The third woman lingered at the base of the porch. I was sweeping. She looked up. No smile, but her expression held something firmer. A kind of groundedness I hadn't seen when she arrived. "Thank you," she said. I nodded. "Come back anytime." After they drove away, Kelly stayed to help clean, but she didn't move like someone checking boxes. She moved like someone letting go of something gently. She wiped down already clean counters, refolded a blanket that hadn't been used, stood in the middle of the living room a long time, just looking around. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah," she said. "I think I finally understand." I waited. Why Mom called this place sacred? Why you kept coming back? She turned toward the big front window. "It's not about the house, is it? It's about what people bring here, and what they leave behind." She looked at me. "You made space for that, even when I didn't understand it." I didn't say anything. There was nothing to add. Later, when she left, she touched the doorframe lightly on her way out, as if acknowledging something that had stood longer than her anger. That night, I walked the house after dark. Room by room. No ghosts, no sorrow. Just the kind of quiet that stays once you've stopped defending it. I didn't expect the letter. It arrived on a Wednesday. Plain envelope, no return address. Just my name, handwritten in blue ink that had begun to soften with time. The handwriting stopped me cold. Elizabeth's, no doubt. The tilt of the L, the loop of the D. After all these years, my body still remembered her script before my mind could catch up. I stared at it for nearly an hour before opening it. Inside, one single page. No greeting, no date, no sign-off. Just her voice on the page. "If you're reading this, I trust you finally remembered who you are." I sat down. Let the weight of those words settle before continuing. You're probably alone when this reaches you. You always were most yourself in solitude. But you're not meant to stay there, Fred. That's not where your story ends. Her words were slower than usual. Careful. I could almost see her pausing, looking out the window between lines. I know grief made you quiet, made you bend. I know you tried to carry everything for everyone. But, darling, you were never meant to live behind walls. You build homes, you welcome people in. That's what you do. That's who you are. I folded my hands over the paper, closed my eyes. I hope Kelly comes back to you. Not the version that lashes out from pain, but the one who still remembers bedtime stories and peanut butter pancakes. Be patient with her, but also be honest. Let her meet the man I married, not the shell he became for a while. There was more. She wrote about the lake, about mornings on the porch, about how she hoped I'd keep the roses alive, how beauty, when tended to, has a way of forgiving the rest. And then, near the end, let the house be what we built it to be, a place that holds love and lets go of everything else. She hadn't signed her name. She didn't need to. I read the letter twice more, then tucked it into the drawer beside her list. I placed the same stone on top, the one from the trail that looked like a heart on its side, and I closed the drawer with both hands. That evening, I made dinner. Not because anyone was coming, just because I wanted the house to smell like garlic and basil and life. I set the table for two, like I used to, and when I caught myself reaching for a second plate, I didn't pull my hand back. Some gestures aren't about absence or presence. They're about continuity. Halfway through the meal, my phone rang. Kelly. She sounded winded, excited. I finished the training, first day of shadowings next week. Proud of you, I said, standing at the kitchen window, watching the light change on the lake. It feels right, she said, like this is where the trail starts over. You know? I do. She was quiet a moment, then added, You'd have made a good counselor, you know. Too stubborn, I said. Too much history. Exactly, she replied. Later, she texted me a photo of a journal page. On it, in her handwriting, was a single sentence. Healing isn't quiet. It just gets quieter the further you go. I saved it. Before bed, I stepped onto the porch. No phone, no music, no chair. Just me, standing barefoot on the old wood planks Elizabeth once insisted we refinish every year, even when they looked fine. The lake was still. The house was still, myself most of all. And for the first time since Elizabeth left, and Kelly tried to take everything with her, I didn't feel like I was holding a life together with duct tape and memory. I felt returned. Not to some version of the past, but to the possibility of peace. To everyone who's made it this far with me, thank you. If this story spoke to something inside you, I'd be honored if you subscribed and shared your thoughts in the comments. And if you're standing on your own porch tonight, wondering if the quiet is worth it, I promise you, it is. It always was. It always will be.